Do you have a leads problem or just a business model problem? Hey, the reality is that the old model that I have been taught when I first got in the mortgage business and that many brokers still use is not actually working anymore. Let me explain it to you this way. A good friend of mine, Peter Mathan, he's done tons of mortgages. And when he first got in the business, I had said to him, like, if you were me and you were starting out, what would you do to grow your business? And he said, I would spend all my time and energy to get 250 clients. And then I'd spend all my time and energy marketing to those 250 clients. Now you could argue 250 clients at the right number, probably a little bit more, but that used to work. When you get a big enough client base, you can actually get quite a bit of business from your clients. But here's what's been happening. If you've been in the business, I'm speaking to my Canadian mortgage brokers, especially here, is that it is very difficult to get those clients to back on renewal because the lenders are very competitive. Back when I started, it was way easier. We used to win on rate all the time. Can't do that anymore. And so building up this database of clients that people would, and this was the strategy, is they'd get a good chunk of clients and they just move them every 3 to 5 years. Again, this is for Canadian brokers who have people in shorter term mortgages, but typically every 3 to 5 years, they could move a good chunk of those clients and it got easier and easier. That is not working anymore. I'm going to explain to you in this episode what you need to do instead. And this is working like a hot damn for some of my brokers that are doing it. Hey, I'm going to give you a quick intro first. I'm Scott Beckford. This is the Out of Mortgage Brokering Podcast. I am the founder of this as well as Bricks Mortgage. Been in the business for 18 years, coaching for almost 10, coaching top producing mortgage brokers and loan officers. And I love, just like my podcast says, I love the mortgage business and I love learning from people. And what I like to do is look under the hood of really smart people and see what things can be replicated. And what I'm going to share with you today, you absolutely need to replicate because it is freaking killer. Okay, before I jump into that, though, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. Ownwell is a company that is like HomeBot. If you've heard of HomeBot in the US, there's other tools, allows home buyers to monitor the home equity and buying power on a monthly basis. This thing is a game changer. When I saw this as a tool in the US called HomeBot, I had talked to the CEO. I'm like, dude, when is this coming to Canada? He's like, I don't know if it ever is. Doesn't look like it is. And so Ownwell is a program that can do that. You can check them out at ownwell.ca/Scott. Check that out. And let's jump into this episode. Okay, I'm going to set the frame for this by talking about the music business first before I get into the strategy and the tactics. So in the music business, in the 90s and even up to the 2000s, the way artists made money is they would sell CDs. And when they sold CDs, 50 to 60% of their revenue came from CDs. But then something happened. Things changed, just like in the mortgage business. Things changed. And guess what? The revenue from CDs and from physical products dropped off a cliff. And they do have streaming. So you could be like, Scott, they get money from streaming. But streaming revenue is way less than, they say that like one CD sale is equivalent of 2,000 to 3,000 streams. And there's not as much money. The top artists, we're talking like Taylor Swift and these big ones that are monsters, they only earn about 23% on the high end from streaming. And a lot of other artists are earning 5 to 10%. Prior to in the 90s, it was 50 to 60% of the revenue came from selling CDs. So the market changed and you could be like, oh, dang, it sucks to be a musician. What am I going to do? Or you can adjust. Musicians have adjusted by having what? Live shows. Obviously, if you've gone to any live shows, the ticket prices have gone up. Merchandise. They do brand deals where they partner with other brands. They ownership in other companies. If you look at Rihanna and Fenty, I think it's called. I'm not into her thing, but she only sold something like 240 million. I looked into this recently, 240 million in record sales, but she's worth 1.4 billion. And that's record sales and not record sales. And that's like concerts and everything. And yet she's worth 1.4 billion. How? It's because she owns part of something. She's built up her personal brand and built something. So all that aside. All right. So what is the strategy? And I believe that's the same thing that's happened in the mortgage business. It used to be get a good chunk of clients, a good database, and you could just market to them and you could move those clients and you could rely on that. It does not work. Like it is extremely competitive. And I see people trying all kinds of strategies. And the problem is that they have not adjusted. Their business model has not adjusted for what the current market, for the current reality. But I have seen people that have done it. And so I'll tell you what you need to do is you need to stop thinking about your database as where you can just get clients for yourself. That's the number one shift you need to make. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to be like, oh, my database, I'm going to try to get these clients. I'm going to spend all this time on renewals. You're not going to get any deals from it. And then you're going to get frustrated. And you need to actually be constantly. So that's the one thing. Don't think of your database as just for you. And the two is you need to be prospecting and you need to be growing your database. Now, most of you, if you're like, Scott, that's exhausting. You know how long it took me to get my first 500 clients? I don't want to be prospecting all the time. I agree with you. I wouldn't want to do that either. So here's what I would tell you to do. Use your existing clients to get more clients. I know that sounds like a great idea, Scott. Here's the thing. Most people make a couple tactical mistakes, and this is why it doesn't work. So I've talked about my friend Wally Library, who's got a fantastic business out of Texas, and he has mastered this down to a science. It's incredible what he's built up done with his business. And so what he does, and what I'm recommend that you do, and what we've been coaching our agents to do, is you got to think of each client that you get, you can turn into 3 to 4 referrals for your wealth partners. And by wealth partners, I mean your financial planners, your accountants, your CPAs, the other people. When they get a mortgage with you, guess what? They need other things. Like, we are so short-sighted. We're just like, I got a mortgage. Good. Reality is that is just one problem that you're solving that they need solved. They need other problems solved. We completely disregard that because we're only thinking about ourselves instead of thinking about, if I can help my referral partners build their businesses, they'll help me build my business if you do the right steps that I'm going to explain in a second. So that's really, really important. You've got to actually think about, you get these clients and does it work? Okay, so we've started a client concierge service for our brokers at Bricks, and we've been making calls for them. And so we've been using this Ownwell tool because the Ownwell tool is amazing. What it does is it's this email that you get, that the client gets on a monthly basis with their home equity, their buying power, gives them options, and it's all about them. It's not some newsletter with a contest. It's not a newsletter with a recipe. Nobody cares about that stuff. They really don't. But my home equity, so the open rates on these emails are anywhere from 60 to 75% open rates because people care about their own home equity. It's my stuff, right? And so they have this. So what they do, what we've been doing is we call people, we get them onboarded with this Ownwell tool. And at the end of it, we have a conversation. We say, hey, look, you know what? We got you set up on this. I've got a couple questions I want to ask you about. First, we want to know that we just put you in a lot of debt. You've got a mortgage now. We want to make sure that you're taken care of with your other wealth partners. Can I ask you some questions? And you start asking about their CPA. You ask them about their financial planner. And what ends up happening is a lot of these people don't have anybody. Or if they have somebody, they're not that good. And then you're like, oh my gosh, we just put you in $500,000 of debt. It's not, if you got somebody who's a 7 out of 10, we got to get you somebody that's better. And what happens is you now have a referral for your financial planner. So I've got, so my son and my daughter's boyfriend, they're pretty young. They've been doing these calls for us. These are young dudes, and I've been teaching the mortgage business, and they have generated a ton of client referrals as well as mortgage referrals just by having these conversations. So we get mortgage referrals, but they're secondary. So then, okay, you get these referrals. So one of our agents, we got 18 referrals in a week for financial planners, insurance people. So now they've got 18 leads that they can give out to key partners. Here's the mistake that brokers make, especially Canadians. I love you, Canadians, but we are way too polite. We give out referrals and we assume people are going to remember to refer us back, and they don't. They don't refer us back because they're busy. They forget, just like you. You probably get referrals and you forget because you're up to your eyeballs, and we never have a business conversation with that referral partner. And then we wonder why, man, I sent all this business. And this is what people say to me, Scott, I sent business to financial planner. Didn't get anything back. I'm like, did you have a business conversation? Well, no, I just assumed. Well, that's why. You don't assume. You've got to have a business conversation, because the reality is not everybody will refer you back, and the ones that won't, next, right? There's this whole book called, they talk about there's givers and takers. There's givers and takers, and there's people that give and take equally. And the best relationships are people who give and take equally. And if you don't have that person if you have the business conversation and want to do it, next, fire them. But anyway, so here's how it works. You get these referrals, you identify the first conversation with that. So step one, stop thinking of your database as clients for you. Think of your database. If you got 400 clients, you could probably conservatively generate 1,200 referrals from that for your other partners, because there's other things they need. So now you have 1,200 referrals that you can hand out to people, but you're going to have, before you start handing out leads, you got to do a couple things. One, you got to identify what they want. So if you're talking to a financial planner and they're like, I want people that have $500,000 in investable assets. Well, it does you no good to send them first-time buyers, because they're going to be like, I don't want these people. So that's the first thing. You got to, the conversation would look like this. So I'm going to do like a role play with myself. Be like, hey, Scott, other Scott, I'll call Wayne. That's my middle name. So Wayne, hey, Wayne. So listen, I got to ask some questions about your financial planning business so we better understand it, because I've got a lot of referrals that I could give you, but I want to make sure that I can get you the good ones. Does that sound fair? Who's going to say no to that? Nobody, right? So then I say, okay, Wayne, so what is your ideal client? What are you looking for? They're going to explain to me who their ideal client is. That's fantastic. Check, check, check. Awesome. Hey, I got another question for you. Last year, who's your number one referral source? Who sent you the most business last year? So Wayne's going to reply, oh, you know what? It was Sally. She sent me 3 clients. Keep in mind, most financial planners do not get lots of referrals from one person. They get them one or two from many people. So it's not going to be that high of a number in most cases. So maybe it's 5, whatever. Cool. Awesome. Hey, one other question. What is approximately you make per transaction? Just want to know what kind of impact this is having on your business. Again, most business people will tell you, oh, it's $5,000 or whatever. Cool. So you're telling me that Sally sent you 3 files or 3 people, 15,000. That's awesome. The reason I ask that, Wayne, and if they ask, why are you asking, is because you say, look, I want to be your number one referral partner, and I'm going to send you way more business than Sally sent you last year. Does that sound okay? They're going to be like, sure, awesome. Okay, why do I want to have this conversation? I want to know A, what the value of a client is to them. B, I want to know who their number one is so that I can crush them. And then when I come and I ask for referrals in their database and intros, they're going to have no choice but to give them to me, right? So you can see how the power of this. So then now I got this information, I start giving referrals. So that's the next step. You got to have that business conversation. And then the other thing you need to say at this conversation, hey, look, Wayne, so listen, it looks like I can send you some referrals on this, but here's the thing. I want to make sure this is reciprocal. So if I start sending referrals, are you going to commit to the same as me sending business back and forth? Again, most people are like, yes, I would love to do that. Awesome. Cool. Fantastic. I'm really excited to work with you, Wayne. You're a solid stand-up guy and you're very great hair. I'm just kidding. I'm just talking about myself now. So next step is you need to have accountability calls with your partners. So don't assume just because you hand off referrals that they pick them up. So the way I would recommend you do this is that when you get these referrals, you then reach out to your partners at the end of the week and you say, hey, look, I got 3 referrals for you this week. Are we able to get a hold of them? Oh, I got a hold of one of them. No problem. I'll reach out to the other 2. Hey, while I got you on the phone, is there anyone you're working with right now that could use my help? How's Wayne going to feel about that? He's going to be like, oh, shoot, I kind of need to, I got to do something. Now, there's 3 things that Wayne or the financial planner, this is true for insurance people, accountants, all of them, what they can all give you are 3 things. They can give you leads, right? Straight up leads. They can give you introductions to other professionals. So guess what? Financial planners know realtors. Financial planners know insurance people. They can also give you their database. And if you're using this database marketing strategy, which I talked about briefly, so the way that we do the database marketing is with this Ownwell report that's coming on a monthly basis. We do a ramp up. So we get them engaged, and then we do a 7-day call when the mortgage closes, a 30-day call to check in on it, and then a 6-month and a 1-year mortgage efficiency checkup. Now, people don't show up every call, but the fact that you're actually managing their mortgage for the life of the mortgage, and when you have those conversations, the value conversations, it's very easy to ask for, hey, do you need any other help? I'm not asking for business. I'm asking for who they need, and then I connect them, and that's how I get my business. So does this work? So it absolutely works. We've already been experimenting with it. I just saw recently one of our agents had posted they got 4 leads this week from it. And I'm telling you, you don't have a leads problem. You got a business model problem. And it's just like back when CDs were all you made your money. You're not going to make your money just from having a static database that's not growing. But if you do this right, you can create exponential growth in your database. You can grow a database because you can start adopting databases. And with Ownwell, you can do this. You can adopt databases and you can actually make this thing way bigger. So for example, Wally, my buddy down in Texas, again, I'm not that creative. I'll be honest with you. I just see what works and I'm like, oh, damn, you should copy this. I would copy this. If I was brokering today, I'm not, because I'm busy doing the brokerage and I do coaching, but I don't do that. I'm not doing it, but I would absolutely copy this. So Wally's got 4,000 past clients in his database, but he markets to 30,000 a month. And what's happened is that he's become unfireable. So he generates so much business for his referral partners that even if he makes a mistake, he screws up a file, completely goes sideways. They're like, I'm not getting rid of Wally because that guy sends us so much business. He owns the relationship because the person bringing the most value owns the relationship, and he owns those relationships, and he can pick and choose who he works with. So he's not just picking he's going after the absolute best people because the best people get this. And he's able to pick and choose who he works with, and he's unfireable because he's created a machine that spits out so much business for everybody else. Now, this reminds me of a quote that I remember reading from Zig Ziglar one time. He said, you can have anything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And that's exactly what you're doing with this. Stop thinking about your database as just, oh, I need mortgages. No, you don't. You'll get mortgages and they'll happen, but don't target your database that way. And a static database that's only growing when you fund a mortgage is way too slow. You can double, triple, or quadruple the size of your database very easily by implementing this strategy. Please give it a try. Shoot me an email. Tell me, Scott, you suck. This is not true. I'd love you to prove me wrong. I don't think you can. I honestly think that this is the best strategy I've ever seen in terms of how to build a business today. Now, if you're brand new, you still got to get that thing going. So maybe I should back up for a second. If you're brand spanking new, you're still going to have to go out and build those initial referral partners. You still got to build up that initial database because you're not going to have it big enough to start. But as soon as it gets to a certain scale, this is what you should be shifting over to. Hope you found that useful. Thanks for listening. I'm Scott Peckford. This is the I Love Mortgage Brokering podcast. And as I said, if you want to check out that Ownwell tool that we have for Canadians, or homebot.ai if you're in the US, go check those out. And I'll put links in the show notes. You can see those. Thanks again for listening. And I will see you on the next episode.